Tonight, we step gently into one of the deepest teachings of the Buddha, a teaching that sounds simple, even ordinary, yet it holds the power to dissolve suffering and reveal peace. It is the teaching of emptiness. For many people, this word feels unsettling. It sounds like loss, like a void, like something missing. But in Zen, emptiness does not mean nothingness. It means openness, spaciousness, and freedom. Before we begin, take a moment, notice what time it is where you are, and acknowledge the space you are listening from. When the Buddha spoke of emptiness, he was pointing to a truth hidden beneath everything we see, that nothing is as separate, solid, or permanent as it appears. The cup that holds your tea is mostly empty. The body you call me is always shifting. The thoughts you cling to dissolve as quickly as they form. Everything changes. Everything flows. Tonight, we will walk through this teaching slowly, like moving through a quiet temple at dusk. You do not need to memorize anything. You do not need to analyze anything. Just listen, gently, and let the understanding settle on its own, like dust settling on still water. As your breath softens and the muscles of your face relax, these ancient insights will weave themselves into you without effort. Let us enter this journey together. There is a Zen saying that seems almost contradictory. Emptiness is what makes things useful. Not the solid parts, not the material, but the empty spaces. Think about the room around you. Is its value in the walls? The walls only mark boundaries. What makes the room useful is the space within them, the space that allows you to walk, to stretch, to breathe. Without that emptiness, a room would be nothing more than a solid block of stone. Or think of a cup. We admire the design, the color, the craftsmanship, but the true purpose of the cup is the hollow center. If the cup were solid, it could hold nothing. The emptiness is the usefulness. And yet, in our lives, we fear emptiness. We chase fullness. We fill our schedules, our homes, our minds. We treat every silence like something to escape. We mistake emptiness for lack. But emptiness is not a hole. It is potential. It is the space where life can enter. Zen takes this further. Emptiness is not just helpful, it is the true nature of all things. But we do not begin with philosophy tonight. We begin with what we can see. And so, here is a story. In a small valley village, where mountains rolled like sleeping giants, there lived a young potter named Tara. For 12 years, she trained under a master craftsman. Under his guidance, she learned to shape clay with flawless precision. Her bowls were perfectly round. Her vases were smooth as flowing water. Her mugs balanced gracefully between beauty and function. People admired her work. She took pride in every curve, every glaze, every detail. Yet there was something she didn't understand. The simplest pieces, the plain bowls she made quickly, the ones she felt were too rough, too ordinary, these were always the first to be bought. While her most intricate creations, the ones she labored over with great care, sat untouched in the marketplace. One morning, an elderly woman stopped at Tara's stall. She examined the bowls quietly, feeling them with fingers worn by many years. After several minutes, she selected the simplest bowl, slightly uneven, thick-walled, unglazed in places. Tara frowned. Why this one? The finer bowls are right here. The old woman smiled. This one, she said softly, remembers what it was made for. Before Tara could ask more, the woman walked away, then paused and gestured for Tara to follow. Curiosity pulled Tara forward. The woman led her through the winding streets to a small temple where a tea ceremony was beginning. They sat in the back. The tea master appeared, carrying a tray of bowls. They were nothing like Tara's finest pieces. They were rough, irregular, some even cracked and repaired with shimmering gold lines. But when the master used them, something remarkable happened. The bowls became alive. Their purpose awakened. They were not decorations. They were vessels, humble spaces ready to receive tea, warmth, and attention. The guests held them reverently, feeling the warmth of the tea through the thick walls, feeling the presence of the moment settle into the palms of their hands. For the first time, Tara saw a bowl, not as an object, but as a space shaped to receive. After the ceremony, Tara approached the tea master. "I am a potter," she said. "I thought I understood what I was making, but tonight I felt something different." The master handed her one of his bowls. "What do you see?" Tara inspected it. "The glaze is uneven. The form is imperfect. There are small flaws everywhere." "Look again," the master whispered. "Not at what is there, but at what is not there." Tara gazed into the hollow inside, and she finally saw it. The emptiness. "This," the master said, touching the space within, "is the part I shaped with the most care. The clay is only the boundary. The emptiness is the heart." Tara felt something shift deep in her. For 12 long years, she had been sculpting clay, but she had never once thought of sculpting space. Tara held the bowl in her hands for a long time. It felt strangely alive now, not because the clay was warm or because the shape was unique, but because she finally understood that its purpose was not in its body, but in its hollow heart. The tea master watched her quietly, as if he were waiting for the recognition to settle in, and when she finally lifted her eyes, he spoke with a softness that seemed to echo the breeze moving through the temple doors. "Most people spend their lives shaping the outside," he said. "Few pay attention to the space within." Tara felt a tremble of understanding, a sensation like the first drop of rain touching dry earth after a long summer. "But emptiness feels like nothing," she whispered. "What value can nothing have?" The tea master smiled, a smile so gentle it seemed to lift the very air. "Try pouring tea," he said, "into a bowl with no emptiness." The image struck her immediately, the tea spilling across solid stone, wasted, lost, with no place to be held. "It is the emptiness," the master said, "that allows the tea to be received. It is the space that gives purpose to the form." He set the bowl down between them. In Zen, we say, emptiness is not absence. Emptiness is possibility. A long silence followed a silence that felt like a lesson in itself. In that quiet, Tara realized she had spent years perfecting what people could admire, and completely ignored the part they actually used. She bowed to the master, and something in her bow was different, softer, more open, less rigid. It was the bow of someone who had just discovered the door to a new path. Tara walked home slowly that evening, her steps softer than usual, as if she didn't want to disturb the truth growing inside her. She noticed things she had never seen before. The narrow street felt useful, not because of the buildings, but because of the space between them. Doorways felt meaningful, not because of the wood, but because of the opening they offered. Even the wind felt like a teacher moving only because of the empty places it could slip into. When she reached her workshop, she stood among her own creations. The shelves were lined with pieces whose beauty she had once admired so proudly. But now she saw them differently. They were beautiful, yes, but their emptiness was timid, overlooked, secondary. They were objects, not invitations. She felt a ripple of humility. The next morning, Tara approached her wheel with a sense of stillness she had never known before. She closed her eyes and touched the clay gently, not to shape it into something to be admired, but to shape the space within it. Her hands moved not around the clay, but around the emptiness she was beginning to understand. She asked herself, what do I want this space to offer? Warmth? Comfort? Ease? What will it feel like to hold something precious inside it? And slowly, her bowls began to change. They were simpler now, less decorated, less symmetrical, but somehow more alive, as if the emptiness inside them breathed with intention. People who bought them noticed immediately. These bowls feel right, they said. They make eating feel peaceful. They hold just enough. They make tea taste better. And Tara understood why. She was no longer shaping clay. She was shaping space. Weeks passed, and one quiet morning, the old woman who had chosen the simple bowl returned. She lifted one of Tara's new creations, turning it slowly between her hands, as if she were holding something sacred. A warm smile softened her eyes. "Ah," she whispered, "now this bowl remembers its purpose." Tara bowed deeply. "You showed me that I was making the wrong thing. I thought I was shaping clay, but I should have been shaping emptiness." The old woman placed a hand on Tara's shoulder. "My child," she said, "you were always shaping emptiness. You just didn't know it. Now you shape it with awareness. That is the difference between craft and art and service." Tara felt tears rise, not of sadness, but of clarity. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," the old woman replied. "Thank the space that finally opened inside you." And so, Tara learned the first great truth. Emptiness is not lacking. It is capacity. It is the room needed for life to enter. It is the quiet that allows wisdom to speak. It is the space that makes everything else possible. Yet this is only one face of emptiness, the face of function. There is another face, deeper, quieter, harder to see. A face that whispers not about bowls and rooms, but about the very nature of the self. And to understand that face, we traveled to another village, where a flute maker named Varro was about to discover how emptiness shapes not only objects, but sound, breath, and the soul. In a quiet valley surrounded by forested hills, there lived a flute maker named Varro. His workshop stood at the edge of the village, filled with the scent of cedar and sandalwood, with shavings curled like little moons on the floor, and tools gleaming softly from decades of careful use. Varro was known far and wide for crafting some of the most beautiful flutes in the region. He chose only the finest hardwoods, cut in the season when their sap was low, when the tree's grain was tight and resonant. He polished each flute until it shone like riverstone. He inlaid patterns of silver and gold. He shaped the mouthpiece with extraordinary precision. Musicians admired his work. Travelers praised his craftsmanship, and yet his heart was restless. For as perfect as his flutes appeared, they lacked something. Something that could not be measured in millimeters or judged by the eyes alone. Their tone was clear, but not alive, precise, but not soulful. Varro often sat late into the night, holding one of his finished flutes, placing it against his lips, playing a few quiet notes, and listening with a sense of disappointment he could never explain. "What am I missing?" he would whisper into the soft candlelight. "What makes a flute truly sing?" His question hung unanswered in the still air for many, many months. One autumn evening, when the leaves had turned to embers and the wind carried the scent of earth and firewood, a traveling musician arrived in the village. He was an old man with a weathered cloak and a flute case tied with faded rope. The villagers gathered to hear him play. They expected skill. They expected entertainment, but what they received was something else entirely. When the old man lifted his flute and let the first breath flow through it, the sound that emerged was unlike anything the village had ever heard. It was pure, like water from a mountain spring. It was deep, like a voice remembering ancient stories. It was both delicate and powerful, both intimate and vast. The music did not simply fill the air, it seemed to open something inside the listeners, something tender and long forgotten. Some closed their eyes, some felt tears gather, some felt their heartbeats slow as if the flute was speaking directly to their soul. Varro stood frozen, the hair on his arm rising. "This," he thought, "this is what I have been searching for." When the performance ended, Varro approached the musician with humility. "Sir," he said softly, "I am a flute maker, your instrument. It has a voice unlike any I have heard. May I examine it?" The musician smiled, a smile that contained decades of wandering and wisdom. "Of course," he said, placing the flute gently into Varro's hands. "But I warn you, you cannot find its secret by looking at what is there." Varro examined the flute carefully. It was nothing like his own creations. The wood was dark from age, worn smooth where countless fingers had rested. There were no decorations, no metal inlays, no polished finish. Some of the holes were slightly uneven. The instrument looked ordinary, plain, almost crude. And yet when Varro lifted it to his lips and blew a soft note, the sound that emerged was like a breath wrapped in moonlight. Alive, mysterious, whole. Varro lowered the flute slowly. "I don't understand," he whispered. The musician nodded, as if he had been waiting for those exact words. "You won't find the answer in the wood," he said. "You won't find it in the shape or the carving. The secret is not in what you can touch." "Then where is it?" Varro asked. The old musician lifted the flute and tapped lightly on its hollow center. "Here," he said, "in the emptiness." Varro frowned, confused. "Emptiness? But that is nothing." The musician shook his head with a tenderness that felt like the beginning of a teaching. "No," he said, "emptiness is not nothing. It is everything." Varro felt silent. The wind brushed past them softly, as if it too wanted to listen. "Your flutes," the musician continued, "are beautiful on the outside, but their emptiness is tight, constrained, shaped without listening." He held up his worn instrument. "A flute is not an object," he said. "It is a passage, a channel, a doorway for breath. You shape the wood, he said gently, but you do not shape the space. Varro's breath caught. He felt the truth of those words even before he fully understood them. Sound, the musician whispered, is born from emptiness. Music is carried by emptiness. Breath moves through emptiness. The flute does nothing, it simply allows space to sing. The old man lowered the flute, and the more open the space, the freer the song. The night softened, like a long breath released by the universe itself. Inside the old hermit's hut, the young wanderer slowly opened his eyes. For a brief moment, he did not know whether he was waking from a dream or entering one. The air was still. A gentle moonlight filtered through the cracks in the wooden walls, spilling across the floor like silent silver water. And there, sitting beside the lone oil lamp, was Master Anshu, his eyes half closed, as if listening to something the wanderer could not hear. The young man sat up quietly. "Master, are we going somewhere tonight?" he whispered. Master Anshu did not open his eyes. Instead, he smiled, softly, knowingly. "Tonight," he said, "we travel without moving." The young wanderer frowned gently. Travel without moving? The master lifted the small oil lamp with both hands. Its flame flickered, tiny, simple, but strangely alive. A warm golden glow touched the walls, then the young wanderer's face. "Tell me," the master asked, "when you close your eyes and remember your childhood, where does that memory take place? In the world outside, or inside your mind?" The wanderer hesitated. "Inside, I think." Master Anshu nodded. "And when you imagine a place you've never visited, a mountain, a river, a sky full of stars, where does that happen?" "Inside, the mind again." The master's smile deepened. "You see, you have already traveled thousands of miles without taking a single step." A cool breeze entered the hut, carrying the scent of night jasmine. The flame of the lamp leaned sideways, almost like it was listening too. Master Anshu placed the lamp between them. "Your mind is not just a place where thoughts appear," he said. "It is a doorway, and very few people ever learn how to open it." The wanderer leaned forward. "What is behind the doorway, Master?" The master closed his eyes for a long moment, and when he opened them, they were different, not brighter, not darker, but deeper, as if a whole sky lived inside. "What waits behind that doorway," he said softly, "is the part of you that you have forgotten, the part that has been waiting patiently for you to finally look inward." The wanderer felt something stir within his chest, not fear, not excitement, something quieter, something ancient. The master lowered his voice. "Tonight, I will show you the first step." The wind outside grew still. The world seemed to hold its breath. Even the flame of the lamp became steady, unmoving. The hut, the night, the silence, everything felt like it was preparing for something sacred. Master Anshu gently touched the young man's forehead with the tip of his finger. "Close your eyes," he whispered, "and see what you have never dared to see." The wanderer obeyed. And the moment his eyes closed, the world around him dissolved, as if the night itself had opened a hidden passage that only the brave could enter. Darkness, but not the kind that frightens, not the kind that hides things. This darkness felt gentle, almost warm-like, the soft space between two thoughts, the silent pause between two breaths. The young wanderer floated inside it, weightless. He could not feel his body anymore, yet he did not feel lost. Instead, he felt as if something invisible was carrying him deeper and deeper still. Then, very faintly, a sound began to rise from far away. It was not music. It was not a voice. It was something older, a vibration, like the hum of creation itself. The wanderer wanted to ask Master Anshu what was happening, but he realized his lips were not moving. His questions were happening inside, and somehow the darkness was answering them before he could even fully form the words. Slowly, a tiny speck of light appeared ahead of him, small as a grain of sand, yet unbelievably bright. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat in the void. As he drifted closer, the young wanderer felt a strange familiarity. He whispered without sound, "I know this place." But how? The speck of light expanded, unfolding like a blooming flower of brilliance, revealing shapes, shadows, and then a landscape made of memory itself. He was standing in front of the small river near his childhood home. The same wooden bridge, the same rustling bamboo trees, the same soft earth beneath his feet. Except this place felt more alive than it ever had in real life. The water shimmered like liquid starlight. The wind whispered like an old friend. And the colors were colors no human eye had ever seen. A soft voice appeared beside him, clear, calm, and impossibly close. "You are inside the chamber of your own mind," said Master Anshu. The wanderer turned, but the master was not in human form. He was made of light, soft, flowing, shifting, like the reflection of a moon in moving water. "Master, what is this place?" the wanderer asked, awestruck. "This is where your fears were born," the master said, "and where they can dissolve." The river suddenly changed. Its waters darkened. The wind stilled. The sky above began to tremble. From the shadowed water, a shape began to rise, a figure made of everything the wanderer avoided, everything he buried, everything he hoped no one would ever see. His breath tightened, even though he had no body here. His heart trembled, even though it was not beating. The figure stepped forward, a darker version of himself. Cold, silent, unblinking. The wanderer whispered, "Master, why is he here?" The light form of Master Anshu did not move. He remained steady, luminous. "Because," he said gently, "no one can enter the deeper realms without first meeting the one person they have spent their whole life running from." The dark version of himself took another step forward. The river behind him roared. The wind coiled like a serpent. The sky pulsed with fear. The wanderer felt his courage slipping, like sand slipping between fingers. "I'm not ready," he whispered. Master Anshu's voice remained calm. "You are ready. Fear arrives only when you stand before a doorway you were meant to walk through." The dark version raised its head, and its eyes glowed with a strange, painful truth. The wanderer wanted to look away, but he couldn't. And somewhere inside him, a long, quiet whisper awakened. Face him, or remain a prisoner forever. He took a small step forward, then another. His breath, imagined or real, grew steadier. Master Anshu spoke softly behind him, his voice glowing like warm light. "Go. This is your first real journey inward." The wanderer reached out his hand toward the dark figure, toward the part of himself he never dared to meet. The world trembled, the river roared, the sky cracked with silent thunder. And the moment their fingertips touched, everything shattered into blinding white light. White light, endless, boundless, a light so bright it did not burn, a brightness that felt like remembering something ancient, something once known but long forgotten. The young wanderer did not fall. He did not fly. He simply was a presence floating inside a universe made of pure awareness. Slowly, very slowly, the light softened and shapes began to form. At first, they were like drifting clouds of gold moving with the gentleness of breath. Then the clouds merged, turning into waves of warm light that spread outward like ripples across a still lake. And then from those ripples a figure emerged. Not the dark version of himself, not the trembling shadow from the river, but something else entirely. It was a child, a small boy, no older than 7, barefoot, eyes bright like the morning sky, a quiet smile, a smile so pure it made the wanderer's heart ache. The young wanderer felt his breath catch. "That's me," he whispered. "But why a child?" The boy lifted his gaze. His voice was soft, but it carried with it the innocence the wanderer had lost long ago. "I was the one you left behind," the child said. "The one who trusted, the one who dreamed, the one who believed he was worthy, before the world told him otherwise." The wanderer stepped closer, his chest tightening with emotions he could not name. "I didn't leave you," he said gently. I grew up." The child shook his head slowly. "No, you buried me. You buried me under fear, under doubt, under the belief that you were not good enough." The wanderer felt the truth hit him like a soft but undeniable wave. Memories began to flicker around them, not painful, just real. Moments where he wanted to cry but held it back. Moments where he wanted to speak but stayed silent. Moments where he dreamed beautifully and then quietly convinced himself those dreams were foolish. The child stepped closer, reaching out his hand. "You don't need to be brave for the world," he said softly. "You need to be honest with yourself." The wanderer felt tears forming, tears not of sorrow, but of recognition. As he knelt in front of his younger self, the light around them brightened, not blinding, but comforting. He whispered, voice trembling, "I'm sorry, I forgot you." The child smiled again, but this time the smile glowed. "You didn't forget me," he said. "You just forgot how to listen." A sound like distant bells echoed through the white space, and slowly another presence formed behind the wanderer. It was Master Anshu. He appeared not as light this time, not as a shifting shape, but in his familiar, calm human form, eyes filled with stillness, robes flowing like morning mist. "This," the master said, "is the moment every seeker must face, not the darkness outside, but the forgotten light within." The wanderer looked up. "Master, what do I do now?" Master Anshu's voice was gentle, yet carried the weight of a lifetime of wisdom. "You take his hand," he said, "and you bring him back with you." The child extended his tiny hand again, a hand filled with innocence, courage, and all the dreams the wanderer once abandoned. For a moment, time stood still. The wanderer reached out and clasped the child's hand. The instant their fingers touched, a warm rush of golden energy flowed through both of them, binding them not as two separate beings, but as one whole soul. The The white world trembled softly, as if relieved. Master Anshu closed his eyes. "Now," he said quietly, "you are ready to enter the deeper realm. The realm no one can enter while carrying a divided self." The light began to swirl around them, forming a pathway, a golden corridor stretching into infinity. The master stepped aside, gesturing toward it. "Walk," he said, "with the child you once were and the seeker you have become." The wanderer held the child's hand tightly. Together, they took their first step into the unknown. The golden corridor stretched into a horizon that did not feel like a distance, but like a memory, as if the wanderer had walked this path long ago, in another lifetime, or in a dream he once forgot to wake from. Hand in hand with the child version of himself, he stepped forward. With each step, the corridor shifted subtly colors, changing from soft gold to deep blue to shimmering silver, as though the path was breathing with him. Master Anshu's voice echoed behind them, not loud, not commanding, but as gentle as a whisper carried by wind. "Remember," he said, "the deeper realm does not reveal truth, it reveals you." The wanderer felt those words settle inside him, like ancient seeds finding their soil. As he and the child walked farther, the golden corridor slowly dissolved until they found themselves standing on the edge of an immense lake, so still it looked like a mirror laid across the world. Above them, the sky was not day or night. It shifted between stars and sunlight, as if time itself did not know where it belonged. The child tugged gently at the wanderer's hand. "Look," he whispered. On the surface of the lake, reflections began to appear, not of the world around them, but of moments from the wanderer's life. He saw himself sitting alone at night, overthinking the smallest of mistakes. He saw himself smiling in front of others while hiding silent storms inside. He saw himself walking away from opportunities he secretly longed for, convinced he was not ready, not capable, not enough. The reflections rippled gently, each memory soft but unmistakable. The wanderer felt a heaviness in his chest. Why am I seeing this? The child looked at the lake, his expression calm, unafraid. "Because," he said, "every time you doubted yourself, a piece of you stayed behind. This lake holds the fragments you abandoned on your journey." The wanderer felt his breath tighten. "Can I take them back?" The child nodded. "That is why we are here." A breeze moved across the lake, and suddenly a new reflection appeared, one the wanderer did not expect. A tall mountain, its peak hidden in clouds. He frowned softly. "What is that?" The child stepped closer to the water. "That is the mountain of your truth. Everyone has one. Most die without ever climbing it." The wanderer's voice trembled. "How do I climb something that is inside my mind?" The child smiled gently, a smile full of innocence and quiet wisdom. "By facing the one fear you have never named." Before the wanderer could respond, the lake shuddered, a deep, resonant vibration that echoed through the sky. A low mist began to rise from its surface, curling like silver smoke. As the mist thickened, a figure began to form on the opposite shore tall, heavy, surrounded by a dark aura that pulsed like a heartbeat. The wanderer felt a cold rush inside him. The child squeezed his hand. "Don't step back," he whispered. "Not now." The figure stepped forward, its presence massive, its energy heavy enough to make the air tremble. Slowly, the mist cleared from its face. The wanderer gasped. It wasn't the dark version of himself he had met before. This was something deeper, something far more powerful. It was the fear of failure, given form. An enormous silhouette with hollow eyes, formed from every moment he held himself back, every "I can't," every hidden insecurity that shaped the path of his life. The ground beneath them shook as the being spoke, its voice a low echo that came from everywhere at once. "You do not belong here," it rumbled. "You are not ready." The wanderer's knees weakened. He felt the urge to run, to hide, to escape this impossible presence. But the child tightened his small grip. His voice was soft, barely a whisper, but filled with absolute clarity. "If you run now, you will spend your entire life running." A breath, a hesitation, a choice. The wanderer lifted his eyes, and for the first time in years, he did not look away. His voice trembled, but it did not break. "I'm done running." The gigantic being paused, as if surprised. The child stepped forward, raising his tiny hand toward the monster. "Fear loses its strength," he said, "when you finally stop feeding it." The lake behind them shimmered, the sky brightened, and the mountain in the reflection began to glow. The being of fear took one heavy step closer. The earth shook beneath their feet. The wanderer inhaled deeply, feeling a strange strength rise inside him. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, like a flame that refused to die. He stepped forward, one step, then another. The monster growled, the lake roared, the sky darkened. But the wanderer did not stop. For the first time in his life, he walked toward the thing that had always held him back. And as he moved forward, the being of fear began to crack, thin lines of light forming across its body, as if his courage was breaking it open. The child whispered beside him, "Keep going. This is where everything changes." The wanderer reached out his hand toward the monster, toward his fear, toward the final barrier to the deeper realm. The moment his fingers touched the being, a thunderous blast of white light erupted across the lake. The world vanished. For a long moment, there was no sky, no lake, no ground, only white light. A soft, limitless brightness that felt neither blinding nor harsh, but warm, like standing inside a gentle sunrise. The wanderer's body felt weightless, as though the light was carrying him rather than surrounding him. There was no fear, no noise, no struggle, just a vast, silent stillness that seemed to breathe with him. Then slowly, the light began to soften and fold inward, like petals closing around the center of a flower. Shapes started to form again, first shadows, then outlines, then the world. He found himself standing on a quiet plateau, high above the clouds. The sky was a deep twilight blue, filled with slow-moving streaks of starlight. The wind carried the scent of pine and the hush of ancient mountains. Standing beside him was the child, his younger self, but something about the child had changed. He looked calmer, wiser, as though witnessing the wanderer's courage had changed him as well. Then the wanderer noticed something else. The enormous, terrifying being, the fear of failure, was nowhere to be seen. But at his feet, where the monster once stood, lay a handful of shimmering fragments, like pieces of broken glass made of pure light. The child knelt, and touched one of them gently. "They're not the monster," he said softly. "They're the beliefs you broke." The wanderer stared. Each fragment pulsed with energy, radiating the faint echo of old thoughts. "I'm not good enough. What if I fail? People like me never succeed. What if I'm not ready?" The child picked up one glowing shard and placed it in the wanderer's palm. "Look." As soon as it touched his skin, a memory rose inside him, the first time he quit a dream because he feared disappointment. Another fragment glowed nearby. When he touched it, he saw another memory, a moment he pretended he didn't care just to avoid trying. One by one, the fragments revealed old choices shaped by fear. The wanderer swallowed hard. "I didn't realize how much of my life was shaped by running from things." The child nodded gently. "That is why fear takes the form of a giant. Not because it is powerful, but because you fed it every time you chose safety over possibility." The wanderer felt the truth settle inside him, like a stone sinking in still water. Where is the being now?" he asked softly. The child pointed to the fragments. "You didn't destroy it. You understood it. And once you understood it, it could no longer rule you." A quiet wind swept across the plateau. The mountain peaks glowed with soft moonlight. After a moment, the child stood. "There is something else you need to see." He led the wanderer toward the far end of the plateau. There, rising into the sky, was a massive stone gate, ancient, weathered, covered in symbols that gently shimmered as though alive. It was the same mountain the wanderer had seen earlier in the reflection of the lake. But here, standing before it, it felt more real than anything he had ever touched. "This," the child whispered, "is the entrance to the mountain of truth." The wanderer approached, feeling a strange mixture of awe and uncertainty. The gate emanated a calm, steady vibration, not threatening, but unmistakably powerful. "What is inside?" he asked. The child looked up at him, his eyes deep, old, filled with a knowing that felt almost celestial. "Inside this mountain," he said slowly, "lives the one truth you have spent your whole life avoiding." The wanderer's heart tightened. "What truth?" The child touched the gate gently. The symbols glowed brighter. "The truth about who you really are." A long silence. The wanderer felt the air shift as if the mountain itself had leaned in to listen. The child continued, his voice soft, but echoing slightly as if the sky itself carried it. "You have faced your fear, but fear was only the guardian. Now you must face the truth." The wanderer felt a tremor of doubt. What if the truth hurts? The child smiled, a warm, gentle smile that held no judgment. "Then it would set you free, and if it heals, it will open your path." He stepped closer to the wanderer and placed a small hand over the wanderer's beating heart. The deeper realm does not punish, it reveals. A breeze drifted past, cool, clean, ancient. The child took one step back. "When you are ready," he said, "touch the gate." The wanderer stared at the massive stone archway, feeling its silent weight, its age, its promise. His hands trembled slightly. Behind him, the world was silent. Ahead of him, the truth waited. He exhaled slowly and reached out his hand. The moment the wanderer's fingertips touched the ancient stone gate, the symbols carved into its surface ignited not with fire, not with light, but with awareness. A soft pulse moved through the stone, as if the mountain itself had opened an eye. The air thickened, not in heaviness, but in presence like stepping into a temple where silence is alive. The child, his younger self, stood quietly behind him, watching with calm, ancient eyes. The great stone doors did not swing open. They did not move at all. Instead, the mountain shifted inward, as if reality folded back to reveal a hidden passage. A long corridor appeared, narrow, glowing faintly, filled with a cool silver light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The wanderer felt the air change again. It was colder here, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of cold that brings clarity, the kind that wakes you gently from a long sleep. Master Anshu's words echoed in his memory. What waits behind that doorway is the part of you you have forgotten. The wanderer stepped forward. As soon as he crossed the threshold, the child disappeared behind him like a candle flame softly blown out. But the wanderer did not feel alone. Something walked with him silent, unseen, but familiar. The corridor slowly widened until he entered a vast circular chamber. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined. There were no torches, no carvings, no markings of any kind, just smooth stone walls and a soft white light that seemed to breathe. At the center of the chamber stood a single object, a mirror, tall, slender, framed in nothing, a mirror that reflected nothing but pure glowing fog. The wanderer approached cautiously. His footsteps echoed softly like distant heartbeat pulses. When he stood before the mirror, the fog inside it slowly began to clear. At first, he saw only shapes: a shoulder, a hand, a silhouette. Then the reflection sharpened. He saw himself. Not the self standing there now, but a version of himself he had never met. He was older, but not worn, calm, but not passive. His eyes were bright with a quiet knowing, and his posture radiated effortless strength. This version of him looked like someone who had stopped fighting life and instead begun walking with it. The wanderer felt his chest tighten. Who are you? The reflection smiled gently. When it spoke, its voice did not echo from the chamber, it echoed inside the wanderer's mind. I am who you could become, the reflection said, and who you were always meant to be. A long silence followed. The wanderer's breath trembled. Then why have I never seen you? He whispered. The reflection tilted its head. Because you spent your life looking at your fears, your failures, your doubts, and you forgot to look at your potential. The wanderer looked down, overwhelmed. The reflection continued, its voice soft, steady, like flowing water. You think you are small because you measure yourself next to your fears, but your fears were never the scale. The wanderer felt something inside him shift, a small crack, a quiet opening. The reflection stepped closer from inside the glass, as if the boundary between worlds had thinned. You are not defined by what frightened you. You are defined by what you walk toward after the fear. The wanderer felt tears well in his eyes. He reached out toward the mirror. His reflection did the same. But their hands did not touch. Instead, the mirror's surface rippled like a lake stirred by wind, and a second reflection appeared. A younger version of him, fearful, hunched, eyes lowered. He recognized that version instantly, It was him from the years he tried to hide his dreams, the years he felt invisible, the years he thought he had nothing to offer. The chamber darkened slightly. The older reflection, the potential self, stepped beside the younger one. Two versions of him, two lives he had lived, one he had outgrown, one he had yet to grow into. The wanderer swallowed hard. "What do I do?" His voice trembled. The older reflection looked at him gently. "Forgive the one you were. Become the one you can be." A soft wind swept through the chamber, yet there was no wind. The younger reflection faded, not violently, not painfully, but like a shadow dissolving at sunrise. The older reflection, strong, calm, luminous, remained. Then it spoke again, its voice quiet enough to feel like truth, whispered directly into the wanderer's heart. The truth you feared was never about the world. The truth you feared was about you. The wanderer's breath quickened. "And the truth is this," the reflection said. "You were never broken, only waiting." The mirror brightened, filling the chamber with warm light. The wanderer lifted his hand again, and this time the reflection's hand reached through the light and touched his. A gentle warmth spread through him, not a shock, not a jolt, just a deep, quiet realization. He had been searching for someone to tell him who he was. But all along, that someone was standing in front of him. And finally, he could see him clearly. The night deepened, and with it, an unusual stillness spread across the forest, a stillness so complete, so profound, that even the leaves seemed to hold their breath. The moon climbed higher, bathing everything in a soft silver glow, and the gentle hum of crickets faded into silence, as if nature itself was waiting for something unseen. Elian walked slowly, his feet sinking into the cool moss, each step echoing softly in the still air. Leora walked beside him, her lantern swaying gently, its warm golden light carving a narrow path through the darkness. Neither of them spoke. Words felt too fragile to disturb the silence that had settled around them. It wasn't fear that tightened their chests. It was anticipation. Something was approaching. Something ancient, something patient, something that had watched over the forest long before humans had learned to dream. At last, Leora whispered, "Do you feel that?" Elian nodded. "Yes, like the forest is aware of us." The two stopped at a clearing. The moonlight pooled across the grass like a silver lake, and a soft breeze finally stirred, but it did not brush past them. It circled them slowly, almost thoughtfully, like an unseen hand tracing the outline of their presence. The moment Leora stepped forward, the breeze carried a scent, warm, sweet, familiar, the fragrance of blooming night flowers. But there were no flowers nearby, not one. Then, without warning, the trees around the clearing shimmered. Their trunks glowed faintly, not bright, but as if lit from within by memories far older than time. The branches rustled, but there was no wind. "Elian," Leora whispered, her voice trembling. "The forest, it's awake." And she was right. All at once, the silence broke, not with sound, but with feeling. A wave of warmth washed over them, gentle as a mother's embrace, ancient as 1,000 lifetimes. It was not frightening. It was comforting, protective, almost loving. Elian felt his heartbeat slow. His breathing deepened. His thoughts softened. It felt like the forest was speaking, not in words, but in presence. And then they heard it. a soft, resonant hum emerging from the center of the clearing. A vibration, deep and soothing, rising from the earth itself, threading through their feet, their bones, their hearts. The ground beneath them glowed, forming an intricate pattern, a circle of light woven from pure moon energy, and at its center, a soft silhouette began to take shape, a form made of light, shifting, pulsing, gentle yet immense. Leora's voice barely escaped her lips. "Elian, is that?" Before she could finish, the glowing figure lifted its head, and though it had no face, they felt it smiling. Not with lips, with essence. A low, melodic voice echoed through the clearing, as if it were coming from the wind, the earth, the stars, and the trees all at once. "Children of longing, you have been seen." Leora gasped. Elian stepped forward without meaning to. The figure of light pulsed again, warm, welcoming, ancient. "The story you seek is older than your sorrow, older than your hope. Come closer." The entire forest remained frozen, listening, watching. Elian swallowed hard. Leora's fingers tightened around her lantern. And together, in the glow of a breathing forest, they stepped toward the being of moonlit light. Elian and Leora stepped forward cautiously, yet something gentle pulled them closer, like a tide of warmth moving beneath their feet. The glowing figure at the center of the clearing did not move, but the light around it pulsed softly, almost in rhythm with their breaths. The forest remained impossibly still. No rustling leaves, no calling birds, not even the distant whisper of a night breeze. It felt as if the entire world had paused to witness what would happen next. The being's voice returned, deeper yet softer than before, a voice that did not use sound, but settled directly in the heart. "You walk with questions, not about the world, but about yourselves." Leora felt her throat tighten. Elian's eyes widened, not with fear, but recognition, as if this radiant presence knew the weight they each carried. The being continued. "All who enter this forest carry a story, but only those who walk with sincerity awaken the forest's memory." The trees around them glowed faintly in response, like thousands of tiny lanterns flickering in the dark. Their intertwined branches shivered with a low harmonic resonance. Leora stepped forward, her lantern trembling in her grip. What are you?" she whispered. A soft ripple of light moved through the being, like a smile passing across its surface. "A guardian," it said, "not of land, but of the unseen, of the truths that sleep beneath silence." Elian swallowed. His voice was barely a breath. "Why reveal yourself to us?" The answer came gently, like a lullaby woven from moonlight. "Because your hearts are restless. Because the paths you walk have begun to ache under the weight of unspoken longing." Elian's chest tightened. Those words rang painfully true. Leora lowered her head. Her eyes glistened. The guardian lifted a hand, or what resembled one, and the entire clearing filled with drifting particles of light, like fireflies born from the earth. These lights began to swirl around them, forming gentle spirals, each movement slow and meditative. And as the lights circled, a memory not their own opened before them, a vision rising from the illuminated ground like a mist. A forgotten village, bathed in morning gold, children laughing beside a river, a woman humming a lullaby under a tree, a young man planting a seedling in soft soil, a life simple, whole, complete. But slowly the scene shifted. The river dried, The tree withered. People faded like smoke dissolving into the wind. The guardian's voice came again. This forest remembers every joy and every sorrow. It remembers the rise of hope and the fall that follows when hearts grow distant from themselves. The lights dimmed. The vision dissolved. Leora felt tears on her cheeks. Elian, did we just see the past? The guardian's form brightened softly. You saw a truth, one that returns when forgotten. Elian took a slow breath. And why show this to us? The ground beneath the guardian brightened, forming a new symbol, a spiral descending inward, like a path returning to its center. Because your next steps, the guardian said, will ask you to remember something you once knew, but have long buried. A long silence followed, gentle, profound. Then slowly, the guardian extended its hand toward them. The air warmed. The ground hummed. The forest leaned closer. Will you walk deeper? It asked. Even if the truths you uncover reshape everything you believe about yourselves. Elian looked at Leora. Leora looked at him. And without speaking a single word, they both understood. There was no turning back now. For a long moment, Elian and Leora stood still, not out of hesitation, but out of reverence. The guardian's outstretched hand shimmered like flowing moonlight, waiting with infinite patience. Elian inhaled slowly, feeling something shift inside him, a subtle loosening, like an old knot finally easing. Leora's lantern flickered gently, as if responding to an unseen breeze. At last, they stepped forward. The instant their hands passed into the glow, a subtle warmth wrapped around them. Not a heat that warmed the skin, but a warmth that soothed the heart, reaching places neither had touched in years. The guardian's voice rose softly. Then the forest will open for you. And just like that, the ground beneath them trembled, not violently, but like the gentle turning of a giant creature waking from deep sleep. The glowing clearing dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again, pulsing in a rhythm ancient as the earth. Slowly, the light beneath their feet stretched outward, forming a long, luminant trail through the trees, a hidden path, one that hadn't existed moments ago. Leora whispered, Elian, this wasn't here before. The guardian nodded. Paths appear only to those willing to walk them. Elian felt the truth of those words echo in his chest. He glanced down at the glowing trail, its edges soft, its center bright, like stardust woven into the soil. Yet there was something else too, a faint shimmer rising from it, like memories drifting upward, waiting to be seen. The guardian stepped back, its form fading slightly into the background light. Follow this path, and you will reach the place where the forest keeps its deepest silence. Leora swallowed. What happens there? For the first time, the guardian's glow dimmed slightly, not in fear, but in reverence. There, you will meet what you have forgotten, what you fear, and what you seek. Elian felt a quiet shiver run through him, not dread awakening. Leora's fingers brushed his hand, grounding him. The guardian continued. But be mindful, the forest reveals nothing to those who rush. Walk slowly, let the silence teach you what sound cannot. The glowing figure slowly dissolved, becoming first a shimmer, then a mist, then nothing at all. The clearing returned to its quiet silver moonlight, but somehow everything felt different, alive, aware. listening. Elian took the first step onto the newly formed path. The soil hummed beneath his foot, as if greeting him. Leora followed, and her lantern glowed brighter, its flame deepening from gold to a soft, serene white. As they walked deeper, the air grew thick with a gentle, almost sacred stillness. The trees arched overhead, their branches forming a natural cathedral. The moonlight narrowed into soft beams that followed their movements. They walked in silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because words felt too loud for this ancient quiet. After some distance, they reached a strange phenomenon, a place where the sound of their footsteps vanished entirely. Elian noticed it first. He glanced down. His feet touched the ground, but made no sound. Leora tried stepping firmly, still silent. She whispered, "Why can't we hear anything?" The moment the question left her lips, the forest reacted. A soft vibration rose from the path, gentle, like breath passing through still air. And then a voice, not the guardian's, but the forest's own, resonated around them. "Because you have entered the realm where sound bows to truth." Elian froze. Leora held her lantern closer. Then the voice continued. "Ahead lies the chamber of echoes where the forest reflects what lives within you, not what you speak aloud." The glowing path brightened, guiding them forward into a deeper darkness, one that felt less like night and more like a doorway. They exchanged a silent, steady glance, and together they stepped into the soundless realm where even their shadows seemed to listen. Elian and Leora walked slowly, guided only by the glowing path beneath their feet. The silence grew thicker, not empty, but full, as if holding invisible shapes made of memory and emotion. Every breath they took felt louder than sound itself, pressing gently against the stillness around them. The trees gradually opened into a vast circular space, a natural chamber, a place untouched by time. Moonlight filtered through the canopy above in thin, precise beams, each one landing on the ground as if placed with intention. The air felt cool, ancient, waiting. Leora whispered, "This must be it." But her voice didn't echo. Instead, the silence absorbed her words like soft earth drinking rain. Elian stepped forward, his heartbeat steady but strong. "Why is it called the Chamber of Echoes?" he murmured. "If nothing echoes here." The moment he spoke, something stirred. A faint glow rose from the center of the chamber, a pulse of pale silver, no bigger than a candle flame. It flickered once, twice, and then expanded, unfolding like a blooming flower made of light. The forest's voice returned, not loud, but everywhere. "Here, echoes do not repeat sound. They repeat truth." The light rose higher, shaping itself into a circle floating in the air, a shimmering ring made of pure luminescence. Leora stared, her breath catching. "Elian, look." He turned and saw something astonishing. Inside the ring of light, the air rippled, forming a reflection. But it wasn't a reflection of the chamber. It was a reflection of Leora. Except this reflection wasn't her as she stood now. It was her younger self. Barefoot, sitting alone under a tree, hugging her knees, her face soft, uncertain, her eyes searching for something she didn't have words for yet. Leora's hand trembled. That's me." Elian watched quietly. The forest spoke again. "Every heart carries an echo, a moment that shaped it." Leora looked at the image, her younger self sitting in silence, waiting for someone who never came. A faint tremor ran through her. I remember this day. I thought no one noticed that I was hurting. The reflection child lifted her head and whispered something soundless, yet Leora could feel the meaning inside her chest. Elian placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Before he could speak, the ring shifted, turning toward him. Elian froze. Inside the glowing circle, a new reflection formed a boy, maybe 12 or 13, standing in a field at dusk. His hands were clenched, his face was calm, but his eyes carried a quiet storm. Leora whispered, "Elian, is that you?" He nodded slowly, the memory rising like smoke from a forgotten fire. The forest spoke again. Here, echoes reveal not pain, but the moment where your heart learned to hide it. Elian watched his younger self, fists tight, jaw set. That evening, he murmured, I told myself I didn't need anyone. The boy in the vision lifted his gaze, and though it was only a memory, the look pierced Elian like truth finally returning home. Then the ring expanded again, the images dissolving like mist. The forest's voice softened. Now that your echoes have been seen, a deeper truth must unfold. The ground beneath them glowed faintly, a new path forming, leading toward the darkest part of the chamber. Leora's lantern flickered. Elian tightened his grip on its handle. From within the darkness, a soft, rhythmic hum began, low, deep, and strangely familiar, like a heartbeat neither of them recognized, but had always known. Elian looked at Leora. Leora nodded. They stepped toward the hum, toward the part of the forest that held not memories, but the truths behind them. Elian and Leora followed the glowing path as it curved gently into the deeper darkness. The hum grew softer now, not louder, as if it didn't need to call them, as if it knew they would come. Ahead of them, the chamber narrowed into a natural corridor. The walls were formed of twisting tree roots, polished smooth by centuries of wind and silence. The air felt cooler here, almost sacred, like the first breath taken after waking from a long dream. Leora whispered, "This part feels different." Elian nodded. "It feels like we're being watched." Not threatened, observed, as though the forest itself was aware of their every step. After a few more paces, the path ended. In front of them stood a tall archway woven entirely of intertwined roots and branches. It looked alive, slowly expanding and contracting, breathing with the rhythm of the forest. At the center of the arch was something remarkable. A thin, vertical line of soft white light. Not a door, not a curtain, but something in between. A door made of light. Leora stepped closer. As she did, the line widened slightly, like an eyelid opening. "Elian," he whispered, "it's responding to us." Before he could reply, the forest spoke again this time, not as a voice carried through the air, but as a presence forming directly inside their minds. This is the door that listens. It does not open to footsteps. It opens to truth. Elian felt a tremor in his chest. Truth. But which truth? He had carried many. The light pulsed gently, waiting. Leora swallowed softly. "What do we do?" Elian closed his eyes for a moment, breathing the quiet air. He stepped forward until the door's glow warmed his face. And then, without planning, without thinking, he spoke the first truth that rose from the deepest part of him. "I am afraid. of letting people see who I really am. The door flickered. The line widened just a little, not fully, but enough to respond. Leora's breath caught. Elian. He didn't look away. The truth felt both frightening and strangely freeing. The forest whispered gently. One truth opens the way, but only one step. Leora understood. This door required more than a single voice. It required both of them. She stepped forward, placing her palm near the glowing line. Her voice trembled, but she did not stop it. My truth, she whispered, is that I never learned how to be enough for myself. I always feared I needed someone else to feel whole. The door glowed brighter, a warm, expanding radiance that wrapped around both of them like a soft embrace. The line widened further, forming a narrow opening of shimmering light. But it was still not wide enough to pass through. A deeper silence descended, a silence that felt like waiting. Elian exhaled slowly. There is more, isn't there? The forest replied. The door listens, not to confession, but to honesty. Leora closed her eyes. More truth. Not polished, not rehearsed, not safe. She opened her eyes again, voice raw. I am tired of pretending I'm stronger than I feel. The light deepened. Elian felt something move inside him. Courage, but a painful kind. He stepped closer. And I am tired, he whispered, of pretending I don't care. A sudden surge of warmth rushed from the doorway, not harsh, not blinding, but soft, like dawn spreading across a sleeping world. The line of light widened fully. The door opened. Beyond it lay a corridor of pure luminescence, stretching forward into a place no human eyes had ever seen. The forest spoke with a clarity that resonated through their bones. You may enter now. What lies ahead is the heart of emptiness, not the space outside you, but the space within. Leora looked at Elian. Elian looked at Leora. Together, they stepped through the door that listens. The moment Elian and Leora stepped through the doorway of light, the world behind them dissolved, not violently, but gently, like mist folding back into the morning sky. The corridor they entered was unlike anything they had ever seen. There were no walls, no floor, no ceiling, only space. Space that glowed softly, breathing in slow, rhythmic waves as if the emptiness itself were alive. It wasn't dark. It wasn't bright. It simply was. Leora took a small step forward, her foot touching nothing, and yet being supported, as though the space shaped itself into a path wherever they walked. Elian, this place, she whispered. He nodded slowly. It feels like we're walking through thought. But not just thought. Memory, possibility, silence, awareness. Everything blended beautifully here, like colors returning to white. As they moved deeper, a gentle humming rose, not from the space, but from within themselves. Elian felt it first, a vibration in the chest, a warmth spreading from his heart outward, merging with the air around him. Then he heard it, a whisper, faint, almost familiar. He turned. Behind him, suspended in the glowing emptiness, was a shape, a soft outline like a figure drawn in light, blurred but recognizable. It was him, not as he was now, and not as a child, but as someone he had forgotten he once was. A version of himself who was curious, gentle, and open before life, taught him to guard every piece of softness inside his heart. Leora gasped. Elian, I know, he murmured. The luminous figure lifted its head, meeting Elian's eyes without expression, without judgment. It didn't speak, but Elian felt something like a pulse of meaning. I never left. You simply stopped looking. Elian swallowed hard. A warmth spread through him, comforting but painfully honest. Before he could respond, Leora felt the space shift beside her. She turned, and there it was. A luminous outline of herself. Not the child from earlier, not the strong woman she tried to be, but the version of her who had once been gentle, trusting, and unguarded. A version who believed she was allowed to rest in her own softness. Leora's breath trembled. I thought she was gone. The figure shimmered gently, radiating the quiet truth. You grew, but you did not outgrow me. As they watched, the glowing figures dissolved slowly back into the breath-like waves of emptiness, as if returning to a place where memory and possibility fused into one. Elian whispered, "What is this place?" The forest's voice returned, but softer now, not booming, not echoing, but intimate, like a thought one remembers just as waking. This is the space that remembers you, the you beneath the stories, the you beneath the armor, the you beneath the fear. Leora felt her chest loosen, as if the space inside her expanded gently. Elian closed his eyes, letting the truth settle into him. The voice continued. Emptiness is not the absence of self. It is the space where the true self can breathe. The waves of light deepened, turning warmer, more golden. Ahead of them, the space began to reshape, forming a distant doorway, not of light, but of shadow. Leora frowned slightly. That one looks different. It is meant to, the forest replied. You have seen your forgotten selves. Now you must face the selves you created. Elian felt a shiver not of fear, but of recognition. Shadows meant masks. Shadows meant roles. Shadows meant the parts of them that became armor. Leora reached out and gently touched his hand. We go together. He squeezed her hand back. Always. The shadowed doorway pulsed once, slow, deep, inviting. Then it began to open. The shadowed doorway opened slowly, as if unveiling a truth that had been waiting for years. Not with impatience, but with patience so ancient it felt like eternity. A soft wind drifted out from the darkness. Not cold, not warm, just present. Elian and Leora stepped toward it, hand in hand. As they crossed the threshold, the luminous world behind them faded and the light dimmed into gentle twilight. Here, shadows had form not frightening, not sinister, but thoughtful, almost dignified. The space felt like a quiet room inside the mind, the place where unspoken feelings waited silently for someone to notice them. Leora whispered, "It feels heavier in here." Elian nodded, like the air has memory. As their eyes adjusted, the shadows around them began to shift, taking shape slowly, like figures stepping out from behind curtains. The first form that emerged stood before Leora. It was unmistakably her, but not the luminous version from before. This one stood tall, shoulders firm, expression unreadable. A version of her who held everything together, even when her heart was tired. A version who took responsibility even for things that weren't hers. A version who always smiled, even when she wanted to scream. Leora stared at the shadow self in silence. Finally, the figure spoke, its voice identical to hers, but deeper, like it carried the weight of all the years she held things alone. I am the strength you used as a shield. Leora's breath hitched, her throat tightened. The shadow continued. You created me so others would not see your breaking points. You leaned on me when the world felt too loud. But somewhere along the way, you forgot I was only a mask. Leora felt tears gather, not of sorrow, but of recognition. She stepped closer. You protected me. The shadow nodded. I did. But protection becomes prison when you forget to take the mask off. The words echoed gently around her, sinking into the empty spaces inside her chest. She whispered, I think I stopped knowing how. The shadow lifted a hand, not threatening, only offering. You don't need to remove me. You only need to stop hiding behind me. A warm ripple passed through the chamber, and Leora felt something inside her loosen a knot she didn't know she had tied years ago. Then another figure stepped forward, this time toward Elian. His shadow self emerged slowly, as if hesitant to be seen. This Elian was composed, reserved, eyes calm but guarded, the version of him who never let emotions spill, the version who always appeared in control, the version who believed vulnerability was a luxury he could not afford. The shadow Elian looked at him with quiet intensity. I am the calm you built to survive. Elian swallowed, feeling the words press into him. The shadow continued. You crafted me from necessity. Every time you were overwhelmed, I stepped in. Every time you feared being seen, I became the wall. Elian exhaled slowly, the truth landing with soft heaviness. I needed you, he whispered. You did, the shadow agreed, but you hid behind me even when you didn't need to. I was meant to be strength, not distance. Elian felt the weight of those words. His own walls had become rooms he didn't know how to exit. The shadow stepped closer, its voice gentler now. You don't have to tear me down. Just learn to open the door when someone knocks. The chamber grew still. The shadows of their created selves looked at them, not accusingly, not demanding anything, just waiting for acceptance. Leora reached toward her shadow. Elian did the same. Their fingertips brushed the forms gently, and the shadows dissolved like mist caught in morning light, not disappearing, but returning to place within them where balance, not burden, could exist. A quiet voice, neither in front nor behind them, but around them, spoke. Your masks were never lies, only incomplete truths. The twilight softened. Ahead, a new path formed not of light, not of shadow, but of soft gold and deep blue woven together. Elian whispered, Where does this one lead? The forest answered, To the place where emptiness reveals its deepest teaching. The space where you learn what you truly are. Leora exhaled deeply, steadying herself. We're ready. Together, they began walking toward the path of woven light. The night was unusually silent. Not the silence that comes from the absence of sound, but the silence that comes before something important, as if the universe itself is inhaling, holding its breath, waiting. Aaron walked alone beneath the ancient trees. Their branches arched overhead like guardians, their leaves whispering secrets carried from centuries long gone. A gentle wind wrapped around him, cool, soft, almost guiding, as though it wished to lead him somewhere. But tonight, Aaron didn't know where he was going. He was simply following the pull a quiet tug inside his chest, as though something in the forest was calling him, with a voice too subtle for the ears, yet too powerful for the heart to ignore. He passed the sleeping village, the dim glow of lanterns flickering behind windows, every home resting peacefully, completely unaware that their destiny was quietly shifting under the canopy of stars. Aaron reached a small clearing. Moonlight spilled like silver water across the grass, and in the middle of it stood a large stone smooth, cracked with age, covered in symbols he had never seen before. But the moment he touched it, his breath caught. The stone was warm, alive, as if it remembered him, even though he had never been here before. A low hum vibrated through his fingertips, then through his arm, then into his chest. The forest around him seemed to lean closer, listening. Aaron closed his eyes. And in that stillness, something awakened. A soft glow rose from the cracks of the stone pail, golden, trembling like the first spark of dawn. It pulsed gently, as though matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. Aaron took a slow breath. Suddenly, the ground beneath him trembled, just slightly, like a whisper of thunder hidden beneath the earth. The glow brightened. The symbols carved into the stone rearranged themselves, moving on their own, sliding like liquid light into a new pattern, a new language, a new message. And for the briefest moment, Aaron saw something. A shadow, a silhouette, a figure standing at the far end of the clearing watching him. He blinked. It was gone. But the feeling remained. A presence, a warning, a promise. The forest exhaled. And Aaron understood one thing with absolute certainty. This was not the end of the journey. This was the beginning of the real one. The stone glowed brighter, its light crawling onto the ground, spreading out like veins of living fire, drawing symbols around Aaron's feet as though marking him, choosing him. Somewhere in the distance, a deep, echoing sound rose, not loud but ancient, like a call that had traveled through centuries to finally reach the one it had been seeking. Aaron opened his eyes, the golden light reflected in them. "Why me?" he whispered. And the forest answered with a rustle soft, comforting as if saying, "Because your soul remembers what your mind has forgotten." The stone pulsed one final time, bright and warm. And then everything around him shifted. The air, the forest, the silence, even time itself. The real journey had finally begun. For a moment, Aaron stood perfectly still, suspended between the world he knew and the world that was quietly unfolding around him. The clearing glowed faintly, as if the earth was breathing light. The ancient stone dimmed to a soft amber, its warmth sinking into the soil like a fading heartbeat. Aaron took a single step backward, and the forest responded. A breeze swept across the clearing, gentle, cool, yet carrying something unmistakably alive. It brushed against his skin like a hand trying to guide him forward. His heartbeat slowed, his thoughts softened. The night air felt heavy with meaning, like every leaf and shadow was waiting for him to listen. Then it came. A sound. Barely a sound at all, more like a brush of air, a sigh wrapped in moonlight. A whisper. But it did not come from the trees, or the wind, or the stone. It came from within the silence. Aaron. He froze. Not out of fear, but out of the strange familiarity that flooded through him. The whisper spoke again, soft, slow, as though carefully shaping each syllable. Do not run from what is already yours. Aaron swallowed. His voice trembled when he finally spoke. Who are you? The silence shifted. The breeze circled around him, lifting a few strands of his hair. The moon brightened, stretching the shadows across the clearing as if forming a path. And then the whisper returned, closer this time, as though standing right beside him. You have walked this path before? Aaron's breath caught. Before? His mind searched, digging through memories that were not memories, fragments, sensations, dreams he never understood. He felt them now, stirring, awakening. Soft images flickered behind his eyes, a temple of white stone under a burning sun, a river shining like melted silver, and a figure robed in deep blue standing at his side. The whisper deepened, as gentle as a lullaby, as ancient as the earth. You were not chosen, Aaron. You returned. The ground vibrated faintly beneath his feet, not with danger, but with recognition. The clearing, the stone, the symbols, the glow, they weren't calling a stranger. They were welcoming someone who had been gone for far too long. Aaron's chest tightened. A strange ache rose from deep within him, an ache of remembering something he still could not fully see. He whispered back, "What must I do?" For the first time, the whisper didn't answer immediately. Instead, the forest responded. The branches overhead parted softly, letting a single beam of moonlight fall directly upon Aaron, illuminating him, as though the night itself was choosing him. The whisper finally returned, gentle but unshakably clear. Begin by taking the step you fear most. Aaron's gaze lifted. The path ahead, the one the shadows had carved, waited quietly. The journey he didn't understand, but somehow had always belonged to, was calling. Slowly, with a breath that filled him with both uncertainty and calm, Aaron stepped forward. The clearing dimmed behind him. The shadows closed the path behind his back, sealing the world he once knew as he walked into the unknown. But the whisper followed him, soft as a promise. This is the step that will change everything. The forest path welcomed Aaron with an ancient familiarity he could not explain. Each step he took felt oddly gentle, as if the earth beneath him softened to cushion his feet, remembering the rhythm of someone who had walked here long before this lifetime. The moonlight filtered through the trees in long, delicate streams, guiding him like invisible lanterns hung by unseen hands. No birds called, no insects chirped. Even the wind moved softly, as though afraid to disturb something sacred. Aaron walked slowly, breathing in the cool night air, letting the silence settle around his heart like a calm river. But beneath the silence, there was something else. A presence, a gentle watching, as if he was no longer alone on this moonlit path. His senses sharpened, his skin tingled, the back of his neck prickled with the unmistakable feeling that someone walked beside him, not in body, but in essence. He didn't turn around. Instead, he whispered into the quiet, "You're still here, aren't you?" The forest didn't answer, but the air warmed slightly beside him, as though a companion had drawn a breath. Aaron exhaled softly. He wasn't afraid. In fact, he felt protected. The path dipped gently downward, leading him toward a hollow of trees interwoven so tightly that their branches formed an archway, a natural doorway to somewhere deeper, older, truer. The archway pulsed faintly with a soft bluish glow, the same color he had seen in his fleeting memory of the robed figure. Aaron hesitated at the threshold. Something inside him whispered, "You've crossed this before." He placed a hand on one of the tree trunk's rough bark beneath his fingertips, warm as though carrying a heartbeat of its own. The moment he touched it, the bluish light brightened, and a low vibration rippled through the ground. Not threatening, not warning, welcoming, inviting. And suddenly, a realization bloomed in his chest, gentle but overwhelming. This place wasn't testing him, it was recognizing him. Just like the stone had, just like the whisper did. He stepped forward. The moment he crossed the archway, the world shifted. The air grew warmer, thicker with an energy that felt almost like memory. A scent reached him, soft, sweet, familiar. Jasmine. His breath caught. He had smelled this fragrance before, not here, not in this life, but somewhere ancient, somewhere sacred. As the scent deepened, a voice, not a whisper this time, rose inside the archway. Clear, calm, echoing softly as though spoken across ages. "Welcome back, Aaron." His heart stopped. The voice wasn't the same as the whisper from the clearing. This one was different, warmer, calmer, filled with a deep affection that made his chest ache. He stepped deeper between the glowing trees, his heartbeat echoing in the silence. "Who are you?" he asked softly. A faint silhouette appeared ahead, a pale, gentle glow shaped like a person standing at the far end of the path. The figure didn't move, yet its presence washed over him like warm sunlight on winter skin. "You knew me," Aaron whispered, though he didn't understand how he knew that. The figure responded, its voice a soft pulse of light. "You knew me too." Aaron's breath shook. The archway closed behind him, the glow sealing the world outside as he stepped deeper into a past he had forgotten and a destiny that refused to let him go. Aaron stood frozen, his breath suspended as the glowing silhouette ahead of him gently brightened like a lantern, awakening after centuries of sleep. The air was warm, here so different from the cool forest outside. It wrapped around him softly, like a memory longing to be felt again. The figure remained still, neither approaching nor retreating, as if giving Aaron the space to breathe, to understand, to remember. Aaron swallowed. His voice trembled, barely louder than the hush of the glowing trees. "Why do I feel like I know you?" The figure shimmered gently, the light pulsing in slow waves as though matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. When it spoke, the voice was calm, warm, and achingly familiar, like the echo of a lullaby his soul had listened to long before birth. "Because you have stood here with me before." Aaron's breath faltered. "Before?" The word echoed through him, awakening something deep, something he had spent lifetimes forgetting. He took a hesitant step closer. "What is this place?" he asked quietly. The figure lifted an arm, not fully formed, just a soft glow shaping an outline, and gestured gently around them. "This is the threshold of echoes," the voice explained, "a bridge between memory and destiny. Only those who have walked both paths can enter it." Aaron's heartbeat quickened, His palms warmed. Something inside him trembled, an emotion he couldn't name. "Why me?" he whispered. The figure's light flickered, not fading, but softening, as though smiling. "Because you began this journey long before you learned to speak your first word." Aaron felt the ground shift subtly beneath him, not physically, but inwardly, a tilt of understanding, a stir of forgotten truths. He stepped closer still. The figure's glow grew more defined now, its edges smoothing, its shape growing clearer, tall, graceful, radiating a calm that made Aaron's chest loosen. "Tell me," Aaron said softly, his voice no longer trembling, just yearning. "Who were you to me?" The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, the forest of glowing trees seemed to sway without wind, as though listening, as though remembering. When the voice finally returned, it carried a tenderness that pierced through Aaron like a quiet dawn breaking open the night. "I was your guide." A pause. "And you were mine." Aaron blinked. "Guide?" His heart tightened, not with confusion, but with recognition that felt ancient and aching. "You taught me," the figure continued softly, "and I taught you. We walked this path together in another time, another life, until the day our paths separated." Aaron's chest grew heavy, as though he could feel the shadow of a farewell he did not remember. "Why did we separate?" he asked, barely breathing the words. The figure's glow dimmed for a moment, not from sadness, but from the weight of truth. "Because you chose a different journey, a harder one, a life where you would forget everything, so that you could learn what cannot be taught." Aaron stood still as the realization washed over him. "I chose this life," he whispered. "Yes," the figure's voice warmed. "And now you have returned to remember what was left unfinished." The air shimmered around them, a soft ripple of light moving like a calm tide. Aaron took another step so close now that he could feel the warmth radiating from the figure. "What was left unfinished?" he asked. The figure took a single step forward. For the first time, Aaron could almost see a face, not clear, not solid, but gentle, serene, filled with a compassion that made his heart ache. "Your purpose," the figure said softly, "and the truth of who you once were." Aaron's breath shook. The world around him blurred, the glowing trees melting into soft light. "What was I?" he whispered. And the figure answered, with a calmness that carried the weight of forgotten centuries. "You were the one who guarded the light." Aaron's heart stopped. The path brightened. The forest held its breath. The past trembled at the edge of awakening. Everything was about to change. The words lingered in the air long after they were spoken, soft, steady, yet powerful enough to make Aaron's entire being tremble. "You were the one who guarded the light." Aaron felt those words settle deep inside him, like a key slipping quietly into a lock that had waited for lifetimes to be opened. He took a breath. It felt different, fuller, heavier, as though drawing in the echo of ancient memories that lay just beyond reach. "What does that mean?" Aaron asked softly. His voice didn't carry fear. It carried longing, a deep ache to understand what his soul already knew. The glowing figure stepped closer, its outline sharpening slightly, still radiant, still ethereal, but more human now, as if closeness granted clarity. "The light you once guarded," the figure began gently, "was not a flame or a star or a treasure." A soft breeze passed between between them, stirring the glowing leaves overhead into a shimmering sigh. It was a truth, a pause, a truth powerful enough to shape worlds. Aaron felt his heartbeat slow, as if his body knew to listen more deeply. You carried it, the figure continued, in a time when darkness moved silently through the hearts of many. Aaron's breath caught, not because he understood, but because he felt something stir, like a door creaking open in a distant hallway of his mind. A time, he whispered. Which time? The figure's glow softened, like the warmth of a candle held between cupped hands. A time before this world drew its first breath. Aaron swallowed. His pulse quickened. Something inside him trembled with the weight of that revelation. You're saying, he exhaled slowly, I existed before this life. You existed, the figure replied gently, before many lives, and between them too. The forest around them seemed to bow silently, accepting the truth like an old friend returning. Aaron felt dizzy, not from fear, but from an overwhelming sense that the pieces of a vast puzzle were slowly sliding into place. Why can't I remember? He asked quietly. The figure stepped closer still, so close now that Aaron could feel a soft warmth emanating from the glow, like sunlight passing through silk. Because forgetting, the figure said, was part of your oath. Aaron blinked. My oath? The figure nodded, its light pulsing with quiet sadness. You swore to protect the light by carrying it into a world where it was fading, a world that required you to become human, to feel their fears, their joys, their losses. A pause, a breath. You chose to be born without memory, so you could learn what must be remembered, not with the mind, but with the heart. Aaron's throat tightened. His chest felt warm and heavy, as if his soul recognized these words far more deeply than his mind ever could. So, I failed? He asked softly. The figure's glow brightened suddenly, not harshly, but with a loving firmness. No, it said. You returned. Aaron's breath shuddered. Returned? For what? The figure extended a hand, a luminous, shimmering gesture, inviting, gentle, reassuring, to reclaim what you once protected. A pause, and to finish what you began. A soft trembling moved through the trees, as if the forest itself was waiting for Aaron's next step. Aaron gazed at the glowing hand, hesitant, but drawn by an ancient trust he didn't understand yet deeply felt. What happens if I take your hand? He whispered. The figure answered, its voice warm as dawn. Then the memories you buried in light will return, one by one. A heavy silence followed, not empty, but sacred. Aaron looked at the glowing figure, at the path behind him, at the shimmering archway that had closed like a chapter already read. His destiny waited in that outstretched hand. Slowly, breathing deeply, heart steady, soul trembling, Aaron reached forward. His fingertips touched the light. And in that instant, the world dissolved around him. The moment Aaron's fingertips touched the figure's hand, the world did not shatter. It softened. Shapes melted. Colors dissolved, sounds stretched into a distant hum. It felt as if reality itself had loosened its grip to let something older take its place. Aaron did not fall. He floated, weightless, as though the gravity of ordinary life had been lifted from him. Warmth surged through his arm, not like heat, but like a memory waking up after sleeping for centuries. A single word rose inside him, clearer than thought, softer than breath. Welcome back. Aaron didn't know whether the voice came from within him or from the being holding his hand. Perhaps there was no difference. Light swirled around him, not blinding, but gentle, like 1,000 golden threads unwinding from his own chest and rising into the air. Each thread felt like something familiar, a feeling, a moment, a truth, and yet he could name none of them. He whispered, "What is happening to me?" The glowing figure's voice answered, calm as a still lake. "You are remembering what you chose to forget." Aaron's breath trembled. His heart felt strangely full, as if it had been waiting for this very moment. Images flickered in the light, not quite memories, not quite dreams. A vast gate made of starlight, a hall echoing with silent wisdom, a council of serene faces watching him with infinite gentleness, a sphere of radiant light hovering in his palms like a second heartbeat. Aaron reached for one of the images, but it dissolved like mist. "I can't hold them," he whispered, voice filled with longing. "You are not meant to hold them yet," the figure replied softly, only to feel their truth. Aaron noticed something then. The forest below him had faded into a backdrop of soft, rolling luminescence, like clouds made of memory. "We are no longer in the forest," Aaron said softly. "We are within the space between your heart and your forgotten self," the figure explained. "A place that awakens only when you do." Aaron turned slowly, taking in the boundless expanse light shifting like water, shadows forming and dissolving with each breath. It felt sacred, safe, ancient. "Why does this place feel like home?" Aaron asked. The figure stepped closer, light brushing against him like a warm breeze. "Because it is the first home you ever knew." Aaron felt tears gather in his eyes, not from sadness, but from a deep, visceral recognition. "What was I?" he asked softly. "What was I before this life?" The figure didn't hesitate. "You were a keeper of the first light." A gentle pulse of golden radiance spread across the expanse, as if the very space around them responded to the truth. Aaron swallowed. The title felt both foreign and intimately familiar. "What does a keeper do?" The figure's voice became quieter, almost reverent. "A keeper safeguards the wisdom that existed before form, before time, before the worlds began to breathe." Aaron's heart beat slowly, each pulse echoing in the luminous space around him. "Why would I leave such a place?" he whispered. "Why choose a human life, with forgetfulness, with pain, with confusion?" The figure's glow warmed, like a soft smile expressed through light. "Because the world of matter was losing its memory of truth. It needed hearts that carried ancient light without knowing." A pause, a soft breath. "That light shines more purely when it is rediscovered, rather than inherited." Aaron's chest tightened with a quiet, aching wonder. "So I chose to forget, so that I could remember?" The figure nodded. "And in remembering, you would awaken the same light in others." Aaron looked down at his hands now faintly glowing, as if stirred by the truth flowing back into him. "But why now?" he asked. "Why am I remembering now?" The figure lifted a hand and gently touched the space above Aaron's heart. warm vibrations spread outward, soft, soothing, like ripples on still water. Because the world is entering a time when forgotten hearts must awaken, Aaron slowly inhaled, steady, deep, present. And what happens, he asked softly, when a keeper fully remembers? The figure's answer was almost a whisper. Then the light that once guided the old worlds will shine again through you. A stillness followed, vast, sacred, absolute. Aaron felt it deep in his bones. A destiny he had once embraced was now calling him home. The figure extended its hand again. "Are you ready?" it asked gently, "to see the first memory you ever lost?" Aaron's breath caught. His fingers trembled, but he nodded. Quietly, bravely, without looking away. "Yes," he whispered. "I'm ready." The moment Aaron said, "I'm ready," the space around him shifted, not with force, but with a gentle, inevitable unfolding, like a flower opening in a field of eternal dawn. The glowing figure stepped closer, its radiance softening into a warm, human-like presence, not intimidating, not overwhelming, but comforting in a way that touched something deep inside Aaron's being. With one graceful motion, the figure raised its hand, and the luminous expanse around them responded. Lines of light appeared in the distance, thin at first, like threads of starlight woven in the air. Slowly, they expanded, forming a tall, arching doorway that shimmered as if made from the first dawn of the universe itself. Aaron stared at it, breath unsteady. "What is that?" he whispered. The figure's voice was as calm as a quiet stream. "The first door, the place where all keepers begin their journey. The memory of your origin rests behind it." Aaron felt something awaken in him, a mixture of wonder and an indescribable pull, as if the door were calling to an ancient part of him that had never forgotten. But beneath the awe was a tremor of fear. "What if I'm not ready?" he asked softly. The figure looked at him, and its light dimmed slightly, not fading, but becoming gentler, like moonlight touching water. "Fear only means that something important is about to be remembered. You do not need to be unafraid. You only need to be willing." Aaron exhaled slowly, his fingers relaxing. The figure extended its hand. "Before you walk through the door," it said, "there is something you must understand." Aaron looked up, waiting. The figure continued. "You believe you are about to see a memory, but this is not just memory. This is truth that was never lost, only hidden. You are not traveling backward, you are traveling inward." Aaron nodded, absorbing every word like a thirsty heart absorbing rain. The doorway flared bright as soft gold, deep silver, a quiet pulse at its center like a cosmic heartbeat. Aaron felt drawn toward it as though a thread connected his chest to that glowing threshold. "What will I see there?" Aaron asked. The figure's answer was simple, yet carried the weight of an ancient promise. "You will see the moment you chose the path of a keeper." Aaron's breath stalled. Chosen by who? The figure touched a hand to Aaron's chest, right above his heart. "By you," it said softly, "and by the light that recognized your willingness long before you were born." A soft warmth spread through him, not sudden, but deep, gradual, like the slow rising of dawn. "I don't remember choosing," Aaron whispered. "That is why you are here," the figure replied, "to remember the promises your soul made before it wore a name." Aaron felt something shift inside him. Again a subtle unlocking, like a door opening in the quietest corner of his being. The figure stepped back, gesturing toward the shimmering archway. "When you step through this door," it said gently, "you will not walk alone. The light that knows you will walk with you." Aaron took a deep breath. The doorway pulsed, golden, alive, waiting. A warm current swept through the luminous air, as if the entire realm were inhaling with him. Aaron moved forward, each step slow, deliberate, like approaching a sacred truth that had been calling him for 1,000 lifetimes. He reached the threshold. The light brushed against his skin, gentle, warm, like the touch of a long-lost friend. Aaron paused. His heart whispered, "I know this place." The figure spoke one last time. "Whatever you see, know this, you were never small. You were never lost. You only learned to forget so you could learn to awaken." Aaron exhaled, closed his eyes, and stepped into the door of light. Night embraced the forest as if wrapping it in an ancient lullaby. The stars above shimmered gently, not in brilliance, but in a quiet, knowing glow, the kind that feels less like light and more like memory. Eshan walked slowly behind the monk, their footsteps making soft impressions on the damp earth. Every sound, every rustle of leaves, every whisper of wind felt amplified, not in volume, but in presence. As they reached the curve of the forest path, the monk pointed toward a clearing Eshan had never seen before. A small, empty space, a circle of untouched earth, and in its center, a single stone slab. Eshan felt a strange stillness around it. Not fear, not curiosity, something deeper than both, as though the stone was waiting. The monk spoke softly, almost like a wind passing through ancient bamboo. "Sit here." Eshan obeyed, lowering himself onto the stone. The moment he did, he felt something shift, not around him, but within him. A thin warmth rose in his spine, and his breath softened without effort. The monk stood behind him, hands folded. "For all these days," he said, "you have looked outward to solve, to understand, to escape." Eshan's eyes lowered. It was true. Every question he had asked, every fear he had confessed, every hope he had carried, all had been directed outward, toward the world. The monk's voice became even softer. "Tonight, you will learn to look inward." A long silence followed. The air around them grew unbelievably still, as though the forest itself was inhaling slowly, waiting. The monk continued, "Close your eyes." Eshan did, and instantly the world shifted. He could no longer sense the trees, the night sky, or even the presence of the monk. All he could feel was the rhythm of his own heartbeat, steady, ancient, honest. "Now," the monk whispered, "listen." Eshan tried listening to the sounds around him, but the monk corrected him gently. "Not to the world. Listen to what you have avoided." A soft tremor moved through Eshan's chest. The words were simple, painfully simple, but they hit the place he had been running from. He breathed slowly, deeply, and then he finally heard it. A faint ache, a quiet sorrow, a very old wound he had never dared to touch. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't frightening. It was just true. Eshan's breath trembled. The monk, sensing his struggle, placed a hand on Eshan's shoulder, warm, steady, grounding. Pain survives only when unacknowledged, he said. Once seen, it begins to dissolve, like darkness before dawn. Eshen felt his throat tighten. A warmth pooled behind his eyes, not from sadness, but from release. The monk spoke again. Do not push it away. Do not fight it. Let it speak. And for the first time in years, Eshen allowed himself to feel without resisting. The ache grew clearer. A forgotten weight rose to the surface like a memory breaking the water's calm. Images flashed in his mind, moments lost, regrets buried, fears unspoken. But this time, he did not run. He just breathed and listened. The monk's voice arrived like a soft breeze. Whatever rises now, let it rise. It has waited long enough. The night air shimmered gently around them, as though the stars leaned closer. And in that sacred stillness, something deep inside Eshen finally began to unfreeze. The forest felt different now, not louder, not quieter, just lighter, as if some invisible weight had been lifted from the air itself. Eshen slowly opened his eyes. The stone beneath him felt warm, almost alive. His chest felt soft, like a knot that had been tightened for years was finally beginning to loosen. He looked around as if seeing the world for the very first time. The monk stood a few steps away, watching him with the gentlest smile Eshen had ever seen. You felt it, didn't you? Eshen nodded. Not in a dramatic way, not with tears, just a simple, honest nod, the kind that comes only when something real has shifted inside. The monk approached him slowly, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said, Tonight, you met the one person you feared for the longest time yourself. Eshen exhaled deeply. It was true. All his running, all his questions, all his confusion. It had always been about avoiding the one place that held all the answers, his own heart. They walked back through the forest path in silence. For once, silence did not feel empty. It felt full, warm, complete. The trees seemed to bow as they passed. The night sky stretched open, wide and peaceful. And somewhere in the distance, a single bird sang not loudly, but with a softness that felt like a blessing. When they reached the old stone steps of the monastery, the monk stopped and said, Remember this, Eshen. The world will challenge you. People will test you. Life will shake you. But the one who has met his own truth remains unshaken. Eshen lowered his head respectfully. The monk turned to leave, but paused for a moment. Without looking back, he added, Whenever the world feels too heavy, sit, breathe, listen. Your inner self will always call you home. And then he walked away into the quiet halls of the monastery. Eshen remained outside for a moment, feeling the cool night breeze touch his skin. Something inside him had changed. Not everything, but enough. Enough to begin again. Enough to walk forward with clarity. Enough to trust himself. As the moon rose higher above the mountain ridge, Eshen whispered softly to the night, Thank you. Not to the monk, not to the forest, not to the world, but to himself for finally listening. And with that gentle whisper, the chapter of his inner awakening came to its quiet, peaceful end.